Dr. Joe Shaw, you are the Rhino Program Manager of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, the acronym for which is WWF. You're based in Cape Town. Tell us about your work.
So in September 2012, WWF South Africa established a rhino program in response to this heightened increase in illegal activity around rhinos and rhino horn. We focus our efforts around a 5-point strategic framework. So there are 5 key areas that we identified to focus on in order to try and support rhino conservation in South Africa. And we were tasked with working with partners to come up with, as far as possible, game-changing projects to shift, not just maintain the status quo or make things a bit better, but get to the root of, understand what is the real problem, and come up with possible solutions.
Let's talk about partners. What partners did you identify?
One of the key areas we feel is understanding the demand for rhino horn from Asia, to know exactly who the consumers are. And we partnered with Traffic, the Wildlife Trade Monitoring Network, and PSI to undertake some very detailed research on the streets in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City to understand why who is buying rhino horn, why they're buying it, what they're using it for, to design a very targeted behavior change demand reduction campaign.
And did your work on demand change lead you to any conclusions? Is there a way in which the demand for rhino horn can be affected through looking at demand?
We made some interesting discoveries. We found that the real driver behind rhino horn purchase, there at least, seems to be emotional. It's not so much that people believe primarily in medicinal properties anymore, more that it makes them feel good, or they feel it makes them look good. It's about status. There were 3 main archetypes of consumers, and the main one was a wealthy businessman who was using horn with his friends, often in quite frivolous ways. And this was the character that we chose to target in our campaign.
And are strategies already in place to try and affect the change in behavior, or is this ongoing work from your organization?
It is ongoing work. Campaign activities are underway, targeting the archetype I've described. The other concerning matter that we picked up was the level of latent demand. So there was quite a small percentage of people buying horn already, but about 3 or 4 times as many people wanting to do so once they could afford to.
Do you believe that if your strategy, your campaign that impacts on demand is successful, that it will have an impact on the number of rhinos that are poached in South Africa?
I think we acknowledge that there's a long and complex chain with a whole range of factors between those 2 points. We deliberately targeted who we felt were the principal consumers in a way, the people who we felt were pushing the price so high in Vietnam, because bringing the illegal price down, we felt, was one of the most powerful things we could do to help protect rhinos. Any
other partners that you work with, and also your earlier reference on game changers, have you managed to be successful in that?
So I'm not sure the game has been changed as yet, because the levels of challenge, the scale of the drivers we're dealing with are extremely large. I think there are 2 key areas we're focusing on at the moment. One is around involving, not just involving, but ensuring that communities in South Africa are benefiting. At present, the protected areas are often still very much seen as an island from which people are excluded. They're not allowed onto the land, they get no benefits, be they financial or just emotional again, from their historical areas. So we've developed we're following a model that's been used successfully elsewhere in Southern Africa around community-based natural resource management. And we're working with partners at the Southern African Wildlife College to set up a CBNRM unit there, with pilot sites in South Africa and Mozambique working directly with communities and protected areas on the ground.
Law enforcement as a factor that needs attention has been part of the seminar discussions. Is that something which the WWF gets involved with as well?
We do. We, through our Black Rhino Range expansion program, do some site-based level law enforcement and support for rhino monitoring and anti-poaching activities. Our analyses suggested that the most powerful level to have an impact was not by focusing on the poachers, but moving further up the illicit supply chain to look at the transnational criminal syndicates who've become involved in moving high-value wildlife products. So our work has been focused on identifying partners who may be able to assist in that.
Do you find that there's sufficient enough recognition by the various role players in South Africa about the importance of the international networks? I'm referring to government departments, law enforcement officials, game rangers. Is there a realization that these international and sophisticated criminal networks play a major role?
I feel there is growing recognition nationally and internationally of the very significant role that global organised crime is playing on wildlife. And the rhino carcasses and elephant carcasses we see throughout Africa are almost symbols of the growing sophistication of criminal involvement in trafficking these high-value products.
Now, this seminar that you are addressing and participating in has focused mainly on the rhino for understandable reasons. In your view, are other species under threat through poaching?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think primarily comes down to a cost-benefit ratio. The exceedingly high price of rhino horn right now means the focus is on rhinos. When the effort gain ratio slips, then I strongly believe South Africa will see greater elephant poaching, as is occurring elsewhere through the continent.
The picture at the moment, as far as rhino are concerned specifically, looks pretty grim. The numbers poached have gone up even this year in comparison to 2014. Are you optimistic that we'll be able to contain this, perhaps even turn it around? What is your sense of developments in the future?
I think we have to remain optimistic. I think Southern Africa can do conservation very well. It's not widely known that in Zimbabwe, rhino poaching was a significant issue before it moved back to South Africa, and they've managed to bring that situation under control through good law enforcement, good use of intelligence, and good biological management of their populations. I think we must remain committed and remain positive and acknowledge that there are no quick fix solutions to this, and it is going to really require long-term commitment to bring about change.
If you were to identify internal South African initiatives that you think would really make a difference, would be game changers, what would you think of?
Rhinos have become a catalyst for many things. This incredible heightened emotion and awareness nationally around this topic has opened many doors. One of them is a change in the way we are connecting rural people with protected areas and an opportunity to readdress the way that people and parks are connected.
It was interesting to speak to the Kenyan participant in this seminar who explained again that in Kenya there's no private ownership of wildlife. Belongs to the state. Whereas in South Africa, of course, you can own a rhino when you're a rhino farmer.
Right.
Do you think this difference in understanding and philosophy has impacted on our debate, or was it too difficult to say that without having looked at it more carefully?
I suspect there's greater complexity than that, because it's whilst the animals themselves may only be privately owned in South Africa, in the four major rhino range states, so South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Kenya, I think certainly in Zimbabwe and Kenya, it's the rhinos on private land. So the rhinos themselves may be custodians of the state, but on private land, the populations are often doing better. So it's very difficult to correlate such a complex issue to one single factor.
Okay. Thanks very much.